Yakwe, welcome to the Republic of the Marshall Islands. My name is Nelly Lakabong, and I will be sharing with you some information about my home. On the background of this slide, you can see the Marshallese flag. The diagonal band represents the equator, with the white band symbolizing the Radok chain of islands and the orange band representing the Radix Island chain. These colors also symbolizing peace and courage. The stars, 24 points, represent the number of electoral districts in the islands, while the four elongated points represent the principal cultural centers of Metro, Chalud, Wache, and Ibai. The Marshall Islands are situated in the central Pacific Ocean between 4 degrees and 14 degrees north and under 60 degrees and under 73 degrees east. They are about halfway between Hawaii and Australia. It is made up of two archipelagic chains of 30 atolls and 1,152 islands. The atolls and the islands are situated in almost a parallel chain-like formations known as the Radix Sunrise Group and Radix Sunset Group. The total number of islands and islets in the old republic is spread across a sea area of over 750,000 square miles. The total land area is about 70 square miles, 181 square kilometers. The average height of the land is above 7 feet above sea level.
The first Micronesian navigators are thought to have arrived in the Marshalls between 500 and 2000 BC, calling the atolls Island Gainar, our island. In 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas ceded ownership of all of Micronesia to Spain, despite the fact it hadn't yet been discovered. In 1529, while seeking a western route to the Spice Islands, Spaniard Alvaro Saavedra became the first European to discover the Marshalls. The area, now known as the Republic of the Marshall Islands, was given its name by British naval captain William Marshall, who sailed through the area while transporting convicts. In the 1860s, several German trading firms began operations in the Marshalls, and a German naval captain negotiated a treaty with some relic inhabitants prior to German government annexation of the Marshalls with compensations to Spain in the amount of 4.5 million in 1885. During the First World War in 1914, the Marshall Islands were captured by the Japanese, who were then granted a mandate by the United Nations to administer RMI. The Japanese continued to administer the islands until the Second World War, with the islands of Mili, Jaloj, Manolep, Waje, and Kwajalein developed into bases, forming a north-south line of defense in the Marshalls. The Allies occupied the Marshalls in 1944 and were granted control after the war. The RMI then became one of the 16 cities in the Trust Territories of the Pacific Islands, established by the United Nations with the U.S. as a trustee in 1947. The U.S. started testing nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands, in Enoedak and Bikini Atolls. After the detonation of the Bravo hydrogen bomb on Bikini in 1954, radiation from the test for evacuation of Marshallese and U.S. military personnel on Rongelap, Rongerik, Udarak, and Islangenai. In the 1960s, the U.S. started creating the conquest of Micronesia in preparation for greater self-government by Micronesians. This finally led to the official establishment of the government of the Marshall Islands in 1979, when the country became self-governing. In 1986, the U.S. Congress approved the Compact of Free Association. The Compact granted the RMI its sovereignty and provided for aid and U.S. defense of the islands in exchange for continued U.S. military use of the missile testing range at Kwajalein Atoll.
The estimated population in 2013 is almost 70,000, with over 70% living in urban areas, including the capital of Metro. The other major population center is Ibai, where an estimated 15,000 people live on 80 acres of land, density of 66,000 people per square. Over a third of the population is under 14 years of age, and the median age of the population is 22.4 years. Marshallese made up the majority of the ethnic groups, with 98% of the population identify as Marshallese or mixed Marshallese. The population is strongly Christian, with Protestants making up over a half of all Jewish couriers. Marshallese is the official language, but English is also widely spoken as a second language and is the other official language. The original comeback of free association entered into force on 21st October 1986, and the amended comeback agreement entered into force in May 2004. The comeback of free association allows the United States to operate armed forces in combat areas, to demand land for operating bases subject to negotiation, and excludes the militaries of other nations without U.S. permission. Most citizens of the associated states may live and work in the United States, and most U.S. citizens and their spouses may live and work in the associated states. The compact also gives Marshallese access to many U.S. domestic programs, including disaster response and recovery and hazard mitigation programs. Legislative power resides in the Nitijala, the lower house of the Marshall Islands bicameral parliament. It consists of 33 senators elected by the 24 electoral districts by a universal suffrage of all citizens about 18 years of age. Executive power lies with the president, who is head of the state and head of the government, and the president's cabinet. The president is elected by the Nidijala. The president appoints cabinet ministers to leading positions in the government departments with the approval of the Nidijala. The Council of Europe is the upper house of the Marshall Islands bicameral parliament, while the Nidijala is the elected lower house. The council is comprised of 12 tribal chiefs who advise the president cabinet and review legislation affecting customary law or any traditional practice, including land tenure. Marshallese can migrate freely to United States under the terms of the Compact of Free Association, and many do so for education and to seek health care. Under the Compact, they are also eligible to work in the United States as non-immigrants for an unlimited length of time. Many migrants have required local expenditures in health and education and have particularly affected the budgetary resource of Guam and the CNMI. The budgetary impact on Hawaii is expected to grow as Hawaii absorbs health care costs once covered by the U.S. federal government. It is estimated that over 20,000 Marshallese live in the U.S. The majority of immigrant Marshallese can be found in Hawaii, Arkansas, and Washington states. Over 4,000 Marshallese live in Arkansas, where many work in meat processing plants. Kwajalein Atoll was used by the United States as the main command center and preparing base for the series of nuclear tests comprising a total of 67 that took place in the 1940s through 1960s. Since then, Kwajalein has been home to the U.S. Anti-ballistic missile testing program. The population of Kwajalein Island is currently around 1,000 individuals, mostly Americans, and a small number of Marshall Islanders and other nationals, all of whom have expressed permission from the U.S. Army to live there. Approximately 13,500 Marshallese citizens live on the atoll, was on Ipai Island. U.S. assistance and lease payments for the U.S. of Kwajalein Atoll as of U.S. military base are the mainstay of this small island country. The Marshall Islands received roughly $1 billion in aid from the U.S. during 1986 through 2001 under the original Comeback of Free Association Comeback. In 2002 and 2003, the U.S. and the Marshall Islands renegotiated the Comeback's financial package for a 20-year period from 2004 to 2024. Under the amended Comeback, the Marshall Islands will receive roughly $1.5 billion in direct U.S. assistance. Agricultural production, primarily subsistence, is concentrated on small farms. The most important commercial crops are coconuts and breadfruit. Industry is limited to handicrafts, tuna processing, and copra. Tourism holding some potential. The islands and atolls have few natural resources and imports exceed export. Under the amended Comeback, the U.S. is also funding, jointly with the Marshall Islands, a tourist fund for the people of the Marshall Islands that will provide an income stream beyond 2024 when direct Comeback aid is to end. The people of the Marshall Islands face considerable challenges to maintain the health of its citizens. Recently, high population growth and crowded conditions in urban areas have given rise to diseases such as tuberculosis and leprosy. These conditions typically come about in rapid growth areas of the world that have limited economic and medical resources. In addition, exposure to the influence of Western culture has brought about a rise in the levels of adult obesity, non-communicable disease, teenage pregnancies, suicide, and alcoholism and tobacco use. Many of the leading causes of death are linked to obesity and non-communicable disease. And with over 45% of population classified as obese and 41% diabetes, the health challenges are immense. Traditionally, like many Pacific Islanders' diets, the Marshallese relied on the fruit of the land and sea. Fish from the surrounding seas, the traditional support of life, while they yield three main crops: breadfruit, pandanus, and swamp's taro, in addition to coconut. Now Marshallese rely of imported food for over 90% of their diet. The change has resulted from many influences including food aid programs, food distribution to population displaced because of nuclear testing and availability of cash for these imported foods. Many of the imported foods are high in salt, sugar, and fat. The customs and culture or money of the Marshalls make it unique. Food is used to solve dispute, to welcome visitors, to provide for funeral, and to pay tribute to the hero chiefs. No celebration is a success unless everyone has plenty of food to eat and leftovers to take home. The second event, family event, is the Kemim or first birthday of a child, where relatives and friends come together to celebrate with feasting and song. A traditional food, makon or janugun, made from preserved pop pandanus paste, lasted a long time, so was useful for sailors on long voyages. Popular local foods still focus around the traditional crops breadfruit, pandanus, and coconut. Puro is made from breadfruit that has been fermented and can then be stored for future use. Peru can be made from either breadfruit, pumpkin, or pandanus, and is a pudding made with coconut cream and sugar or syrup. Coconut or wine can be used to make delicious jam or cookies. Bob Pot is boiled pandanus. Jokra is jokra. And finally, I'd like to share with you some pictures of the Marshall Islands. At the top left, you can see some slippers or zoris made by weaving pandanus leaves. At top right, you can see some of our local foods, coconut, pandanus, and papayas. In the middle, you can see ethnic participants watching a cooking demonstration. Bottom left, you see the main runway of the Amadakabua International Airport on the island San Pedro.
At the bottom right, you see traditionally constructed canoes.
Kamoltada.